Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit where the inner warrior shines in their light. Today, I have the pleasure of a good friend of mine, dear friend, Allegra Pacheco. Allegra was one of the first people that came on my show when I was just getting started back in the early days. So I appreciate you helping my show and getting that started. And I appreciate you coming back to share where your journey is taking you now.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here and just totally as a different person. It's amazing what I think it was like a year ago or so that we
In two
last
years.
interviewed. Two
Yeah.
years. Okay, so
Yeah.
wow, yeah. So what an amazing journey it's been for the last 2 years, right? I feel like I'm a totally different person now than I was back then, and I'm just so grateful that I am. And so that's kind of an update in a nutshell as far as like where my journey has taken me in general. So thank you
Okay.
so much for inviting me. And thank you so much as well for being an integral part of my growth and my healing journey because I know that you helped me out so much, especially just really honor who I was and not be afraid to show that and to express that to the world, regardless of how they received it. So thank you for that, Coach.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. I guess we can end the interview there, right there. It's all wrapped up.
That's it. No.
Bye-bye. That's all, folks. When we first met, we met in Nashville at an event for a community we were both starting to get involved with, and you were still suffering from some of your traumas from your breast implant illness and some of the other wounds that you were overcoming. You and I did some one-on-one coaching as well as some other stuff, and you started to really blossom and shine. And I got to tell you, from this side of the aisle, it's been an amazing transformation. I mean, you went from that first interview where you wouldn't hardly even say anything. I almost felt like a dentist pulling stuff out of you to someone. Yeah, I mean, now you're doing full-blown Zumba classes. You own Havana's 13, which is your metaphysical store.
Yeah.
And you are now speaking on stages and putting yourself out there in more places to share your story and shine your light. So the transformation has been amazing and very proud of you.
And thank you so much. And it's really interesting that you bring that up because it wasn't until you bring the fact up that I wasn't really speaking a whole lot. See, because for me, I had no idea the reason why I wasn't speaking. And this was actually until recently, right? But I had no idea that as a victim of narcissistic abuse, I actually had become silenced. And that's something that many women who have endured that type of trauma become over time. And so it was just so eye-opening and amazing to me to finally put the pieces together of, wow, this is why I couldn't speak. See, because I thought it was just anxiety. I thought it was just, maybe nervousness that everyone experienced, but I really didn't understand that it's actually part of experiencing narcissistic abuse as a trauma survivor. And so, as the days go by and as the time has gone by, I've become more and more grateful for my voice. I've become more and more grateful for the fact that I can express myself because, yes, there was a time that I was so broken inside, and I feel like God has put me in this space so that I can really experience self-care and self-healing and self-love and be able to do that while helping others do the same, because I feel like there are many people that need to really learn what that's like, right? We're taught many times what self-care, self looks like, and many of the times it's commercialized. It's like kind of cheesy in my opinion, bubble baths and spa trips, whatever. But for me, the last, I would really say 6 years, as you mentioned, I am a breast implant survivor, breast implant illness survivor. So that was also a healing journey. So it's almost like for me, about 5 years ago, my life sort of started to really just have a domino effect, right? I had my implants removed, and then I feel like I went through a cycle of having the toxicity in my life removed. And that started with the breast implants. And it's really interesting how many times the things that are going on with our physical self or our physical body are also reflective of the things going on with our higher self or our conscious self. And so for me, I really can see that relation to that, going back, looking at that, because once I removed the toxicity of my breast implants, and let me tell you, that was a very difficult decision to make, especially because at the time I was contemplating that decision, I was in a relationship, and I was also very confused as far as what I thought beauty was, or what I thought a expectation of a woman was, right? So for me, I was caught up in what I like to call the matrix. I was caught up in what everybody considers cool, and nowadays people are really pushing surgery and stuff. And for the longest time, I was really ashamed to speak about my breast implant illness because number one, it's such a sensitive topic. And number two, I almost feel like when you come out and speak against it, all of a sudden you're an asshole, you're a hater, you're not supporting women, because part of self-love is just doing whatever you can to your body. And that's the point that I decided to draw a line as far as letting it be okay that other people didn't agree or maybe thought that my story had no validity, right? Because those people are not the people that I share my story for. And I feel like as I have allowed myself to share that story without any regard to what type of reaction I may get, and especially put aside the shame, shame because in our culture, it's almost like there's certain things that we don't talk about, but there's expectations that are underlying. For me, that was one of them, was sort of like, yes, you're pressured to be sexy and to look a certain way and to be desirable in order to be in a relationship and be loved and be worthy. But there's also that shame attached to it because now all of a sudden, there's all these titles and stuff that are given to women as well. So for me, what I really learned about going through the journey with my breast implant illness was number one, how important your health is. Like literally, your health is everything. And, in my 40s, dealing with something that major was just a huge eye opener. It totally just made me so grateful for my body, so grateful for the fact that I was given perfection when I was born, and there was nothing that needed to be done to that. So the way that I feel is that once you lose something, you really appreciate what it was, right? So for me, that was my health. So speaking about some of the symptoms that I experienced with breast implant illness, I used to have migraines at least 28 days out of the month. So
Wow.
literally migraines. And I'm not talking about little headaches. I'm talking about migraines that just won't stop. They won't stop with painkillers. They won't stop with anything. So migraines, bloating, I used to gain up to 15 pounds in 1 week. The fact that I was a fitness instructor and I would gain 15 pounds in 1 week was a very uncomfortable and almost really hard to just do what I had to do. I mean, it's like, whoa, what's the shock of all this water retention and swelling? So these are some of the symptoms that I experienced. I lost pretty much like 75% of my hair. I had memory loss. So part of what I do as part of my passion is I'm a Zumba instructor, and I've been a Zumba instructor for years. And where I really noticed it and where I have noticed the improvement and what I'm so grateful is that by using all of these tools, Zumba is one included, I've been able to help myself become better. But what I noticed with the Zumba routines is when we teach Zumba, I have about 256 songs in my memory bank. And when I was having my symptoms and I had my breast implants inside my body, I could not remember anything for shit. I would start to do my routine, and all of a sudden it would just be blank, right? And I couldn't remember anything. That was the same with different tasks that I had to do. Oh gosh, did I turn off the car? Did I turn off the water? Just memory loss, right? So I have seen that my memory loss has started to improve also, but that was one of the symptoms, was extreme memory loss. I also had extreme mood swings, depression, anxiety, irritability. I didn't enjoy being around people. Let's see, and I'm sure joint pain is one of them, and I still, and by the way, I did have my implants removed, but there are certain surgeries that you can do, and I know you know about the sterile, but I didn't have the capsules removed. So because of that, I have experienced about a 75% improvement. However, there's still the 25% that I still get those symptoms. However, when you take me from having 28 days a month to 2 or 3 days a month of migraines, I'm loving it, because it's like, wow. So I did take a chance in doing the surgery that way. And that was a lot of it. That was a financial decision, because one of the things is when you have your breast implants removed, the way it was when I had mine removed, I had to pay out of pocket because my health insurance wouldn't do that. And that's the way it is right now. And that's really something that I would like to highlight. And I would really like to advocate for change for that, because I think it's really unfair that it is not considered a medical procedure. And maybe that has changed since now. I don't really keep up to all the regulations and stuff, but I really feel like there needs to be stronger warnings, and even up to these products being removed from the market, because the way I look at it, foreign objects, especially silicone, do not belong in a person's body.
Well,
And that is some,
yeah, no, I'll jump in just for a second, because as you know, my wife suffers from the same breast implant illness recovery, and she's lost her entire decade of her 50s to this illness, like you, memory loss, fibromyalgia, pain, joint pain, all of that stuff. So when she had hers removed several years ago, after she was almost on her deathbed, it is out of pocket. It's considered a cosmetic surgery, which removal shouldn't be. But one of the things that we found out through our own process, and people might be sitting there thinking, well, what's the big deal? You shouldn't have gotten silicone. Shame on you. But here's the problem. And we found this out firsthand from ourselves, because my wife had saline. After we got into this problem where she was almost dead, and heavy metal toxicity, she had arsenic poisoning, she had all this other stuff, we found out that every single implant is encased in silicone. It doesn't matter what's inside of it. Every casing has silicone. So yes, there's thousands of women who don't have any issues, but there's a lot, and thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them that do. And what happens is that heavy metals that are in that silicone, because they're created with things like kerosene, arsenic, aluminum, titanium, plutonium, paint thinner, toner ink. I can go on because I know this from 10 years of dealing with it with my wife. All of that's in the silicone casing. And sometimes that leaches into your body and causes the illness that it caused for you and caused for my wife. Sometimes it almost causes death, like it did for my wife. She had arsenic poisoning so bad, and we couldn't get any doctors to help her. She has the same hair loss issue that you did. She looked like a cancer patient. The hair was falling out so frequently. She was traumatized by even taking a shower because she didn't want to
yes.
deal with the hair loss. And doctors were no help, because they don't want to admit that there's an issue. And like you, she gained weight unexplained, and the doctor would tell her, well, you can go to the gym for your weight, and women your age start to lose their hair anyway, and all this other crap. And as a woman, you start to think that some of this stuff is in your head, and you're being told by every doctor on the planet that there's no problem, but your body so well, there is a problem, and you know how you feel once you remove them. So there's a definite issue with the implants. I'm with you. I think that everyone should know exactly what they're made of before they're implanted into them. And if you want to take that risk and that chance, fine, go ahead, but at least do it with full information. Don't do it with just, oh, it's saline, so if something happens, your body will absorb it. No, it's silicone encased saline. Um,
Exactly.
so, and the other thing that you mentioned, you know, it doesn't just affect the person with the implant. It affects your family, it affects your friends, it affects your loved ones. You start losing friends because you're so sick you can't go do stuff with them, so they don't keep call anymore. Your loved ones have no choice but to sit and just watch you be in pain all the time. Nothing they can do for you, and that's hard. I've been dealing with that for 9 years. And then in your situation, you also were in a narcissistic relationship that kept the implants in because you wanted to look good, not only for yourself, but for someone else who was so narcissistic they couldn't even help you through what you were going through. So you had a double whammy.
Oh, yeah. And talk about really having a kind of like a aha moment or wow, that was an experience that really kind of like showed me the situation that I was in, right? And backing up a little, I want to talk about when I got my implants removed. I went to the same surgeon that did them, right? So I have no complaints about the surgeon. I think he's a great surgeon, but same thing that you said. They do not acknowledge nor do they admit that there is anything wrong with the implant. So when I was speaking to the surgeon and I was letting them know that I wanted to take them out, they're looking at you like if you're crazy, first of all, right? And well, we can take them out, but we haven't heard of anything, I mean, like this at all. So we don't really know what you're talking about. And not only that, but I feel like this is their livelihood. This is what they make their money on, right? So they're going to have sort of a skewed opinion on what it is that they're actually doing. Like I asked so many questions before I got my implants in. I asked the nurse, I asked the secretary, I asked the people that have implants, I asked the doctor, are there any dangers associated with this? Are there any known blah, blah, blah? And the only thing that they told me was that they have to be replaced every 10 years. Other than that, they were absolutely safe. And the story still remained the same even when I went to take them out. And when I was getting my pictures done before the removal or of the surgery of the implants, I remember specifically the nurse who didn't have implants herself, but she's worked there forever. She looked at me and she said, "Oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. Are you sure you want to do this? Because you look gorgeous, right?" So it's like, here you are, here I was already like, shit, if I take these out, how am I going to look? Because at that time, just like it is right now, I think, I'm not sure, I don't pay attention to that shit anymore, but it used to be like you had to have a certain body type, right? You had to have like the little thickness and, the whatever, the curves, whatever. So at that time, that's the stage that I was in, that things like that actually mattered to me. So it just kind of shows you how, you grow and change over time. But just to kind of clarify a few things, the other questions that people have asked me is, did you have a cheap surgery or cheap procedure done because you have had these issues? And that's a misconception that I really want to clear up, because my surgery was far from cheap. I didn't go to like a different country. I'm not knocking anything, but it wasn't like it was cheap, right? It was like expensive. I paid for the best. I did my research. I went and I visited about 6 surgeons before I found the final surgeon, and he was far from the most cheap surgeon. So I really just want to also put that out there, because I think a lot of people have a misconception about the quality of the surgeon, that I might have used, and maybe that's why I had problems. Not the case. And yes, so going back to the situation that I was in, I feel like, as I was mentioning, as the toxicity started to be removed from my life, I really started to see. And I want to also confirm what you were saying as well, that there was times that I was so sick, like I just could not, if I wanted to, even if I wanted to, I couldn't go out. And yes, that affects the quality of your life, that affects the quality of your relationships. And what really sucks is when you don't have people that are supportive of your condition around you, right? Like when they are not sensitive to the fact that you're sick. And I feel like with breast implant illness, one of the hardest challenges is the fact that it's something that you can look at somebody and they can look totally normal and they can look like nothing's wrong with them, right? And they could look like, wow, you look healthy. Are you sure you don't feel well? So if nobody really is familiar with that, I have experienced also that people may doubt you, may think that maybe you're just doing it to be an asshole or seek attention, or have no clue. But it's really interesting with that type of situation how that works out. And when I had my implants removed, I have my family. My family is a small family. I have my daughter who's in her mid-20s. I have my parents and I, and we're very close. So I experienced trauma at the age of 12. I lost my brother in a car accident. And so because of that, my family and I have always been really close. So I knew what support was. I grew up knowing what love was. I grew up knowing what somebody really having your back was, right? And then I decided when my daughter graduated high school and was going to college, it sort of kind of shook up my world, because all I had done was like known her for 18 years and all of a sudden she's leaving. So that's when I kind of experienced a life-changing event. I got into this relationship with somebody that I thought was great. And if you're familiar with narcissistic abuse, narcissists always come across with the love bombing. So it's really hard to kind of for me to know the situation that I was in. I mean, first of all, I feel like many narcissists will usually go after people that are a good target. So what that means is they may be going through something emotionally. They may have, something that's wrong with them. So this individual that I met started with the love bombing. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This is too good to be true, right? So, I had no idea, and many women that are in narcissistic abusive relationships have no idea that they're in them either. But when I started to really see clearly was when I had my implants removed. And there was also a couple of other issues in regard to COVID. When COVID happened, I lost a few family members, and a few family members of mine got sick. And I really started to see that the individual that I was living with was far from supportive and actually appeared to get joy out of my heartache. And so I'll give you a story. I remember I had just gotten my surgery done. It was about day 5, and I think you're supposed to have no movement for 20 days, right? So whenever I was with this individual around my family, they were like, wow, the best. Can I get you anything? Do you need a pillow for your legs? Do you need some water? But then, and my family would come visit me and they would come help me, and my mom would cook for me and she'd bring me stuff like that just to make sure I was okay. But then they would leave. And then when they were there, he was really nice. But then when they would leave, it's like, you're fucked. I'm on my own. I was like, I remember asking him to help me vacuum. he wouldn't help me vacuum. So there I was 5 days, and he was like just okay with me doing stuff like that. And I kind of noticed after a while, like, I really hate this individual. I cannot stand this individual. And I feel like I started to really see that after the surgery. And as I was mentioning, I felt like, so getting that surgery was like one of the most courageous things that I have done. I had to search for the word because it really did take a lot of courage for me to do that. Because number one, it was during COVID. I had no clue, like I didn't want to get any vaccines. So I had no clue, at that time you were worried that you would get COVID and surgery and then you'd be screwed up. So I was really, I had a lot of fear going into the surgery. Second of all, I had just the intense fear of being put under and being on some type of anesthesia. So not being able to be awake, and just the thought of having the breast implants removed, because when I had them put in, that was not an easy surgery. I remember I woke up and it felt like an elephant had been put on my chest and I couldn't breathe. And it was like, wow, even with the painkillers, I felt that. So, backing up a little, the reason that I had my breast implants removed was because I had started to see a therapist. So the therapist that I had seen was an amazing therapist, and I feel like God really put her in my path to help me along this journey. She was a woman that was not from the state that I'm in, and she had been doing psychotherapy for 30 years. So she started doing, and I have been, by the way, before I saw this therapist, I have been in therapy my whole life. However, I had never really found a therapist that I felt helped me, like really helped me. And this therapist that I had, I call her a drill sergeant. She was she was not very nice, but I feel like I needed that at the time, right? Like if I was 10 minutes late, it's like, how important is this to you? She would just talk shit to me for 10 minutes. And it was like, wow, you're kind of rude, but I get it, right? So she taught me, first of all, like boundaries. And I see that that was so important for me because as she taught me boundaries, I started to realize that I needed to set those in my life too. So the way that I found out about my implants was we started talking about my habits. And I just want to make it clear that, when you go to something like psychotherapy, and I'm a huge believer in it because it totally changed my life. I feel like you really have to be open and honest. And that's with anything to work, right? Like I could have gone to this therapist and I could have lied to her. I could have said, oh, yes, I'm fine. I don't drink. But I decided I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of being so emotional. So at that time, I feel like I also took the step and was honest about the situation that I'm in. So this therapist started to ask me questions like, what are your daily habits? Do you work out? What's your diet like? What are you ingesting in your body? What are you doing? What are your different habits that you have? So for me, that really gave me an opportunity to kind of analyze myself, because those were questions that I hadn't even like really known. And for me, she taught me to start taking care of myself. Like she's taught me to start being my own advocate. And as a matter of fact, I spoke to her about the relationship that I was in. And I had my partner meet with her one day, and she didn't say anything. She didn't tell me anything. The only thing she did tell me was she recommended a book, and it was called Psychopath Free. And it is one of my favorite books out there. It really helped change my life. So it was almost like if she put a little bug in my ear and told me, here, check this out, right? I want you to read this. And I will tell you that even when I was reading it, I was like, So when I met her, I was like the rebellious teenager, right? I'm like, why the fuck does she have me reading this shit? I
Well,
don't get this.
the title alone should have been a clue, psychopath free. I mean, I don't have to say what I think about your boyfriend, but here's a book called Psychopath Free. Might have been a clue what she thought.
Yes. Yes, and that's why I think it's so important to even just point that out, that that's how blinding narcissistic abuse can be when you're in it. And that's why I think it's really important that I just clear up maybe some misconceptions, because I think sometimes people think that a woman that has been abused maybe didn't come from a loving home or didn't have support or this and that. But the point is, like, I had all that. So for me, I was well taken care of emotionally, financially. I was always respected and honored. Matter of fact, my dad always told me, not only can you do what a man can do, you can do better if you choose to. Like, it was never the fact of that I was never less than. I was always empowered in my household. And so I feel like I was just at a stage in my life that was very volatile. And that's why, these days I do talk a lot about self-love and self-care, because I think it's important that we really just decide what we want our world to look like, right? Part of the reason that I fell into that abusive relationship is because for most of my life, I listened to the narrative and to the expectations of society that if I wasn't married and I had a child, that I was a whore, or that I was a loser, or that I was, less than, or whatever you want to call it. There's all these judgments that are thrown out there about women like me, right? And so when I really came to the point that I went through this abusive relationship and I saw the bullshit that I had to put up with just to say that I was in a relationship, it really just opened my eyes. And looking back on the situation, I do believe that that's part of the reason why I stayed in that situation, is because women are taught that if you don't have a partner by 40, you're old, you're put out to dry, you're like, oh gosh, good luck with that. And for me, that's not the narrative that I choose to accept anymore. I have chosen not to date, but I have no doubt that my partner is out there and will be waiting for me and is waiting for me. And when that happens, I will know that I'm ready. But for me, it was just a huge eye opener. I remember that I had this attitude, like, I had had relationships that hadn't worked. And a lot of the reason why I feel that my relationships hadn't worked was because of the unhealed trauma that I hadn't addressed, right? That many women have, and many men have as well. And so back in my mindset with that relationship, it was like, in Spanish, we call it "Que va decir la gente?" Wow, what are the people gonna say? Another boyfriend? Who are you bringing for Thanksgiving? Is it Juanito or is it Benito?
Yeah. Who's in the revolving door?
you know,
Um,
so so yeah, those are just kind of like part of the experiences that I feel, the narrative that I chose to believe, that I had to make this shitty relationship work, because I've also heard the nonsense bullshit that there's more women than there are men, and good luck because you're not going to find anyone, right? So I had all this negative bullshit that I was playing to myself over and over that made me believe that I wasn't worthy of happiness, that I had to suffer and endure that bullshit, because if I didn't, I would be alone. And guess what? I've been alone for 3 years and I've never been fucking happier in my life. So,
well, let's jump into the happiness because we want to know,
yes.
what were you using? I know that we did some coaching and you had your therapy and stuff like that, but what really was the spark for you to find your own joy again and your own self-worth again and your own voice again? What were you using to work your way out of that darkness into your light?
Also, for me, it was part of just finding the right communities for me, the people that understood me, the coaches that understood me, like yourself, right? So even though I had the therapy that I was going through, I feel like without the community around me, especially after leaving that narcissistic abusive relationship, I wouldn't have been able to get as far as I've gotten, because the bottom line is who you surround yourself with is so important. And I can just say, that being around people that really understood me and understood my trauma, and there's no shame and there's no guilt and there's no manipulation and there's no ill intentions, was huge for me, right? Because I feel like I was a very wounded person. And then I came into the community, and you were part of one of the people that I met, online, and various other coaches. But I feel like just having those people around me, yourself included, that really helped me honor myself and just continue to grow and move forward. I feel like when you go through something that is so life altering, like I was saying, my whole life changed, right? So at that time, I really needed that support. I really needed those people that would tell me. One of the things that I really loved was the people that I would meet that would tell me, put me in check, right? That would tell me there's other alternatives. Maybe you should try this way, or just the support that I received. The other thing that I used is I have always had a passion for dance. My mom says that I was born dancing. I believe it. It's one of my passions. It's part of my culture. It's what I grew up doing. My dad showed me the love of cumbias. So in our culture, in our traditions, when we have any type of event, whether it's graduation, whatever it is, reunion, wedding, we always have a dance. And so what I really found after doing research on trauma, because I feel like I wasn't really aware of my condition so much until I started being informed around the communities and speaking to people through the coaching that I've received as well. So for me, I feel like putting the two and two together, like I knew I liked to dance. I knew that working out was amazing for me. I've been doing Zumba for a total of 8 years now. Um, I've been teaching for about 3 years virtually. And for me, Zumba is part of my mental health therapy. It was a huge part of my detoxification. So during any Zumba session, you can burn anywhere from 300 to 900 calories. So because it's so intense, it really helped me sweat out a lot of those toxins. So I'm so grateful about that. I also just started doing like non-pharmaceuticals. I got completely away from pharmaceuticals. I started using herbal remedies, whether those are teas, whether those are tinctures, whatever grows naturally. If it grows a pain relief, I use natural pain relief. So for me, I really was turned off with everything pharmaceutical. And so I have been pharmaceutical free for a total of 5 years now. And I am just so happy. That is from being on Lexapro, Paxil. I was on anxiety medications. I was addicted to barbiturates for 6 years because I was prescribed barbiturates for the migraines that I got from my headache. So I am able to manage the pain that I do get with natural remedies. And for me, just really having gratitude in life has really helped me. So gratitude, and really just getting back in touch with my faith, because I feel like when I was younger, I had a really close connection to God. And then my brother died in a car accident, and I got very angry with God. Like I almost turned my back on God, and I got really angry in general. So I was a very angry person for a while. And then I went through the breast implant illness. I went through the relationship that ended, the narcissistic abusive relationship, which by the way ended horribly. But because I went through all of that, I feel like it allowed me to be able to experience certain things. And I almost feel like part of what makes me feel better, and even though I didn't want to do this in the beginning, was actually just sharing my story.
Hmm.
Because as I share my story, I feel like the shame leaves, the guilt leaves, all of the all of the judgments that maybe I held against myself leave. But most of all, what I really understand is that there's so many people out there that like need to hear the reality, because there's so much fake shit out there that we learn, we learn stuff that doesn't even help us in life. And when it comes to mental health, emotional health, there's really not a lot of people that'll be real with you about that stuff. A lot of times we hide our emotions, we hide our conditions, we hide our experiences because we're afraid of what other people are going to say. So really just having that gratitude has really helped me as well.
Well, I mean, I worked one-on-one with you for a little bit. I worked with your mom and your dad all one-on-one, and the same thing that you said, your mom also said, just allowing the space to actually feel your journey without judgment and making it safe to be broken. You weren't judged, you weren't shamed, we worked through it, and you found your own self-worth through all that. Um, as a coach, I think it's very important that it irritates me when coaches are all sunshine and rainbows. Everything's positive, everything's great, everything's wonderful. And there's a place for positivity, but there's also something which I consider to be toxic positivity. And to me, the toxic positivity is all of that. Hey, everything's great, right? Sunshine and rainbows all 24/7. Be the best you can be 24/7. Well, to me, true positivity is if there's a problem, there's also a solution, and let's find your way out of it. But you have to allow someone to sit in their pain for a few minutes without pushing them through it before they've healed from it, because then they just end up burying it and ignoring it. And it just later on down the road becomes a bigger problem, you know? So the fact that you were willing to go inward, the fact that you were willing to sit with the loss of your brother, sit with the abusive relationship, sit with the implants and what happened to you because of that, and then find your way out of it with a solution, the gratitude, the dancing, the, joy-filled life, those allowed you then to fully heal instead of just pushing them aside. Oh, yes, I'm fine, because it doesn't serve you well that way. So you did a lot of the internal hard work to get you to where you are today. And you started your company, Havana's 13. Tell us a little bit about that a little bit.
Sure. So Havana's 13 is something that I started a little about a year and a half ago, and I have crystal pendants, handmade jewelry, I have vegan beauty products, and it was sort of something that I feel like came to me just as I started to vibrate higher or change, right? Like just kind of like we were talking about at the beginning, like getting to know myself and what my passions are and what it is that I really enjoy. So when I was younger, I went to college. I got my beauty degree. I got my college degree. And then right after that, I got my beauty degree. So I became a cosmetologist, right? And I thought that I wanted to do hair, but I didn't. And that wasn't really something that I enjoyed. However, as I've gotten older, I've really just sort of embraced the fact that I'm a creative individual and that I'm an artistic individual and that I'm a colorful individual and that I'm a unique individual. And I used to always sort of try to hide that because I always felt like such a freak, right? Like you hear certain statements, which I think are complete and utter bullshit. Like after 40, you shouldn't wear this, or just different fashion statements. And I'm totally against like society's expectations for what they feel that fashion should be for a woman. So for me, I like to have fun. When I do my Zumba stuff, I love to wear colorful outfits. I'm a very colorful person. So I thought that it would be a great way to incorporate those traits that I have and bring them into sort of an online store. Right now, my store is only online. It's havanas13.com. All of my stuff is handmade locally. So I do make a few of the items. I make some of the velas, and I also make these boxes, jewelry boxes, stash boxes that I have coming out. When I started Havanas 13, I did those, and it's been about a year and a half that I haven't, but I have a few that are coming out. I also have different collections that come out all the time. So one of the things that I also experienced was that one of my cousins encouraged me to start doing some modeling. So I started doing some modeling, and the modeling just kind of flowed very well with the boutique that I have with the Havanas 13 store. So it's all really divinely guided, in my opinion. And I used to, I guess you could say, minimize or kind of like not give credit to those qualities that I had because I thought maybe they were sort of elementary, right? Because we're taught that, having fun and being creative and playing isn't really that important. But I found that as I get older, those are really all important things. And part of what made me want to provide these items for people, and right now I do have some items for men, but it's mostly for women, the earrings and stuff like that. I do have a few things for home, but part of the reason that I wanted to provide them was really just to help people take care of themselves a little more, so experience a little more self-love and self-care. So some of the crystals have healing properties. And for me, one of the things that I've experienced is that getting ready, doing my makeup, doing my hair was something that when I was in a depressive state and in an abusive relationship, I really neglected. And it's something that even though I don't do every day, it's something that I really enjoy doing because I feel like when you look good, you just feel better. And there's a difference, walking into an interview. I did interviewing for years, so it was always really impressive to me, especially back in these days, when people take an effort and actually take pride in their appearance, because I feel like self-care and taking care of yourself is a huge part of self-respect. So I think that Havanas 13 gives people the opportunity to do that in a unique way, and everything is made with love and positive vibrations. So
Is there a unique story behind the name Havana's 13?
So 13 is my favorite number. I was born on Friday the 13th, and Havana's is sort of a name that kind of came to me. My goal is to change my middle name to Havana eventually, and that's a long story. My parents had to give me a middle name because the church told them that the name that they wanted to give me was not Catholic enough. So because of that, the little rebel in me.
Sorry, your name's not Catholic enough. What did they want? I mean, what do they want you to call you Moses? I mean, was it Esther? Uh,
Right,
what
exactly.
name did they want to give you?
So I think they wanted to give me like a Spanish name, and they ended up giving me my middle name, which is Anne, because they said that they couldn't have, I think it was like Amelia or something, they couldn't do that. So because of that, I'm like, we're gonna switch that legally one day. It's just a name that a couple years ago, and it's really cool because all of my Zumba people, that's what they call me. That's the first name that they know me by. So I'm either Allegra or Havana. So yeah, I want to call it like a name that I experienced during my spiritual awakening.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sorry to laugh, but as a Reformed Catholic, I have never heard your name's not Catholic enough. I'm like,
Right?
wow.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so what's on the horizon now as you enter into this happy chapter and we put the darkness behind you and we move forward into your light? What's ahead for you?
So for me, I'm looking forward to continuing to expand Havana's 13, as well as do some speaking on some stages and hopefully impact some people. I'm really interested. So for a long time, I kind of asked myself, like, who is it that I'm speaking to, right? And part of me has always been, a huge part of me has always been my culture. I'm a Chicana, I'm a Latina, I'm a Hispanic, and I'm proud to be that. And if you know me, you know that that's the case, right? And so because of that, I feel like I really am interested in helping my people because I can understand my people. And not that anyone else isn't my people. That's not what I'm saying. I love all people. It's just the way that I feel is there's certain cultural experiences that I have experienced, you know, that if you're not of the culture, you wouldn't understand. One of them is like therapy is totally frowned upon. And so for me, I think it's important that people do speak to somebody or do get a coach like you or do talk to somebody because keeping it all in, like you said, is really not going to help anyone. So I really just want to spread the message of the fact that maybe, you know, you are struggling with addiction or maybe you're struggling in a horrible situation, but there's always a chance to rise above. And that's really a message that I want to get out. In the communities here in New Mexico, we are seeing a lot of drug use. I have lost some people that I love to drugs. And so for me, it's really important to just kind of bring the trauma awareness out so that people can really address those traumas so that they don't have the interest in self-soothing with any type of alcohol or substance, drugs, whatever it is that they do. And I also am looking forward to traveling. As my daughter moves on in her next stage of life, I'll be visiting her. So I'm excited about that. And really just spending time with my family and continuing to, first of all, take care of me. Like I have so many goals for myself. One day I want a healthy relationship. One day I want to, you know, have a certain physical fitness. So I always, for me, I love working out. Like I've always been a tomboy, I always played sports. So for me, like it's what is the next thing that we're gonna do, right? I've been doing Zumba for a while, but I'm looking for something else. Like I started doing weights and I'm like, maybe I want to do boxing. So how can I further my physical fitness and how can I continue to grow as an individual is really what I am looking forward to.
Well, I I think boxing would be great. I've done boxing and I think it fit right nice with your Zumba. But I want to, and this isn't for a shameless plug for me, but I want to piggyback on something that you said that I think is very important for everyone to understand. Would you say that I have been a good coach for you?
Yes, definitely.
Would you say that overall, in general, from what you've known, from what I've helped your dad with, your mom with, other people, that I'm a pretty good coach, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. But I can never be a Latino woman knowing what a Latino culture is. I'm a French Indian. I have no clue. I'm a male French Indian. I have no clue what a Latino woman goes through in her culture. So it's important that your voice be heard. And I tell this to a lot of my clients, and I told it to you. You know, people are afraid that, oh, no one will listen to me, or, you know, what am I going to say? Or, you know, there's already other people out there saying it. And I always say this example because I like to give illustrations. Go to any grocery store bread aisle. There are dozens of different types of bread. They're all sliced, they're all wrapped in plastic, but somebody is getting something different. And somebody is going to get something different. You and I could say the same exact words, the same exact tone, and the people are going to hear it differently from you than they hear it from me. So it's important to find your own voice and don't worry about serving everybody. Serve those that you can connect with on that level because there's no, look, I would love to help everyone in your culture, but I don't understand the same cultural processes that you do. So you're going to do a better service to them. And I think it's important that people understand they have to find their voice for their people. You can't be a shotgun and help everybody. You have to be a bullet that finds your main target, and that's who your voice will resonate with.
This is so true, and thank you, because that was part of the reason that, I mean, I was also silenced because of the narcissistic abuse, but I was also silenced because of my culture, because I understand that I do sound different, that I do look different, that my experiences are different. And as a woman who has been in corporate America and who has experienced racism, that has also made me hesitant on getting in stages in front of people. And I just want to mention that I never experienced anything but open arms and welcoming from you. So for me, I think it's really important that when people are looking for that person, you know, like to help them, to coach them, to guide them, that they really are honest with themselves, you know, about like, is this person going to understand me, right? Are they going to understand that I am a minority? And regardless of, you know, there's a lot of things that people don't want to address today because of the way that the world is, but there's a lot of things that just are the way they are, right? And so, for example, there are certain things that I have experienced because of my name and because of my skin color that other people haven't. And whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's wrong, whether it's right, it still is. And I feel like just what you said also encourages me, because for a long time I had this idea that I had to stand up and I had to like pronounce everything correct. For a minute there, I was working on my vocabulary. I was like, oh gosh, I went to Mota Elementary. I need to learn these big words because I mean, what are these people going to do with me? And then I'm like, you know what? So as what I've learned is that I'm just being myself. Like if you're hanging out with me and you're talking to me, you're going to hear me cuss. You're going to hear me talk about cars. You know, my daughter and we have an amazing relationship. I cuss with my daughter. It just is how it is, you know, and those are things that I felt like I had to hide or I had to, you know, negate about me, or, oh my gosh, those are bad things. But really, I feel like it is important that we do be ourselves. And I feel like as I am more myself, I see how, you know, the people in my culture that's starting to send me messages or starting to speak the lingo like we grew up, because they understand it. And I'm understanding that what I have to say may affect some people that aren't in my culture, but there are certain things that only my culture can understand. And those are things that I'm okay with being part of now. Whereas to a while, I feel like even when I would say my name, when I would speak, because I've spoken before in business, I would always change my name, right? Like I wouldn't say it Spanish, I wouldn't say it. It was always like I was ashamed of my culture because I had experiences that made me be ashamed of my culture, but I'm not there anymore. And so I feel like even though we have a lot of stuff going on out there where people are maybe afraid to be of a different culture, I stand in the fact that I am proud of my culture and I love everyone else too, but I'm not going to deny how I grew up because I grew up a certain way.
So no longer Ann O'Brien.
No,
Catholic enough for anyone? Ann O'Brien.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
I'm very proud of who you're stepping into and how much progress you're making. And the difference for you is noticeable for anyone who knew you in the past to notice you here. But you did the hard work, you did the internal healing, and that's what it took. So I asked you this 2 years ago. I'm going to ask you again. One final question. What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to Allegra Pacheco?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna get emotional. Okay. So for me, it means never giving up, regardless of what life throws you, and always having gratitude and the knowledge that the sun will always rise again tomorrow.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, it's definitely going to rise again tomorrow and it's going to shine brightly on you like the sun has been all night in your studio there. I appreciate you coming back for the update,
Thank
and
you.
I just am very glad that you're in my world and in my tribe. And thank you for doing this tonight. And many blessings to you and your family.
Thank you, Coach.
All
I
righty.
appreciate you.
All righty. Good night.
Good night.